Minister. Minister. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's operational information update on the flooding and landslide situation in BC. For today's briefing, we'll have updates from Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General Mike Farnworth in Victoria, Minister of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources by Arnold Castelland, Warning Preparedness Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, David Campbell, Head of the River Forecast Centre, Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources. We will also be joined for questions only if required from Ashok Badi, Executive Director, South Coast Region, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Paula Cousins, Regional Executive Director of Southern Interior Region, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. As a reminder to media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You're limited to one question and one follow-up. I will now hand it over to Minister Farnworth.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I'm honoured to be here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people and the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. The significant weather that we have seen continues to create challenges for Trans Mountain and the transport of fuel through the pipeline. After meeting with Cabinet this morning, I'm announcing today that we're extending the temporary order to limit fuel for non-essential vehicles until December 14th, 2021. This order applies in the Lower Mainland to Hope region, Sea to Sky region, the Sunshine Coast, Gulf Islands, and Vancouver Island. The fuel conservation measures are working, and I want to thank British Columbians for their patience, but we need to stay the course for another 2 weeks until we have the Trans Mountain Pipeline back online. We need to ensure our supply chains and emergency services have the fuel that they need to function. Minister Ralston is with us today and will provide more details shortly. Given the extension of the fuel order and the continued threats of storms and flooding, we are also extending the provincial state of emergency through to the end of day on December 14th. Extending the state of emergency will support the ongoing response and recovery from the widespread damage already caused by flooding, while positioning us to take all necessary steps in the days ahead. In addition, all current orders related to non-essential travel on Highways 3, Highway 7, and Highway 99 remain in place. Many people across the province have been affected in some way by these storms, and we are still in a volatile and dynamic situation. While we continue to repair heavily damaged infrastructure, including highways and railways, and ensure the movement of essential goods and services to people in need, we need to continue to help farmers and others in the agricultural sector with cleanup and recovery, and support affected families, businesses, and communities. We must remember there are still big challenges ahead of us. In the coming week, I urge British Columbians to place close attention to weather forecasts and road closures. In addition to the areas of concern in southwestern BC, we're also putting in place assets for the potential of flooding in the Central Coast, especially the Bella Coola Valley. For all British Columbians, please check forecasts and warnings from Environment Canada regularly this week, and listen to your local governments and authorities, especially if evacuation alerts or evacuation orders are issued. Anyone under an evacuation order should leave the area immediately. Please check on vulnerable neighbours who may need assistance, and if you're unable to evacuate on your own, call 911 and report your location immediately. I know Mayor Braun in Abbotsford has continued to call for anyone remaining in Sumas Prairie to evacuate immediately, and I need to reiterate the risk to lives there as another storm threatens to bring more heavy rain. Yesterday, the Nooksack River in Washington State breached its banks, putting further strain on the Sumas River and Prairie. These storms have impacted thousands of people and continue to cause devastation and loss. Thousands remain away from their homes and communities continue to grapple with extensive damage. This recovery will take time. And yet we are seeing firsthand the strength and resilience of the people of this province and the efforts in communities to protect and support one another. I want to thank British Columbians for doing their part by avoiding non-essential travel, conserving fuel, and staying safe so that essential vehicles can continue to operate. The fuel conservation measures are working. They are temporary, and we will drop these measures as soon as we are able to. I also want to assure British Columbians that fuel is coming in by barge and by rail. But for now, until the pipeline supply is back up and running, we need to stay the course. With the holidays approaching, I understand that people have concerns about being able to travel to see family and friends. We understand that people want to be able to make travel plans, and we are working to make good progress in repairing travel corridors in the days and weeks. Again, at this time, the priority for fuel needs to be given to commercial and essential vehicles, to reconnect communities that have been cut off and to deliver goods and services that we all depend on. I want to thank all of those working around the clock to ensure that we can lift these restrictions as soon as possible. I want to thank the emergency managers, road crews, the more than 500 Canadian Armed Forces members, First Nations and local leaders, volunteers, RCMP, and countless efforts for your efforts. All of us working together have been getting us through this terrible time. And I know by all of us working together, we will get through this. So with that, I want to turn this update over to my colleague, Minister Ralston. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Farnworth. I'm joining you today from the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I'm here to provide an update on the fuel supply in the southwest region of British Columbia. Government staff have been working hard with their federal counterparts at Transport Canada and Natural Resources Canada through the Federal Provincial Supply Chain Recovery Working Group, as well as fuel suppliers, retailers, and the Canadian Fuels Association to ensure that we have enough fuel supply to get us through this critical time. Thanks to everyone's fuel conservation efforts, we have been able to maintain a steady fuel supply to the region. Retailers acted quickly to manage the fuel restriction order. In some cases, retailers have set an automatic cutoff related to the price at the pump consistent with 30 litres or less of gas. We've also seen British Columbians act calmly and rationally at the pumps, taking only what they need when they need it. I want to thank the fuel suppliers, the retailers, the hardworking gas station attendants, and everyone who continues to do their part to follow this order. Fuel has made its way into the Lower Mainland from Alberta through the railways. We also know that some barges have arrived to offload fuel from the United States. This has provided a supply of fuel to compensate for the product that would usually come from the Trans Mountain pipeline while the company works towards restarting the line. We know that a large weather system is expected to hit in the days ahead. What we don't know is what impact that will have on our railways, our roads, and the pipeline infrastructure in the province. Consequently, as you've heard from Minister Farnworth, we have extended the fuel restriction order. We ask that everyone continue to follow the extended order until Tuesday, December the 14th. This will ensure that we can continue to prioritize essential vehicles as we endure and recover from these ongoing significant weather events. I can tell you that if British Columbians abide by the fuel orders of 30 litres for non-essential vehicles per trip to the gas station, we will continue to have a stable supply of fuel in our province until our traditional supply routes are able to restart. So if you don't have to be on the road, don't drive. If you only need a quarter tank of gas, leave the rest for the person behind you. And if you can take public transit or work from home, please do so. The Trans Mountain Pipeline provides the majority of transportation fuels for the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island. The pipeline has been down since November the 14th, 2021, although crews are working around the clock to restart the line in a phased approach. The incoming weather system is something that Trans Mountain is watching closely as well. Our rail system is the obvious backstop for transporting crude and refined fuel from Alberta into British Columbia. As I've said, CP Rail has moved refined products such as gasoline and diesel into southwestern British Columbia in the last week. That, along with the fuel barges from the United States, has helped to replenish the supply of fuel in the Lower Mainland and surrounding regions. As I said earlier, ministry staff have worked closely with our federal partners as well as industry, to ensure a steady supply of fuel to retail locations in southwest British Columbia. There are 6 major fuel distributors in British Columbia, 5 of which supply the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island. All of the fuel distributors operate with contingency plans in the event that there is a fluctuation in their traditional fuel supply. They have invoked their contingency plans and have sourced fuel from other sources. There is one refinery in southern British Columbia, the Parkland Refinery in Burnaby. Last Monday, Parkland announced that they were pausing their refining processes as they no longer had access to crude oil required to develop refined fuels such as gasoline and diesel. The refinery is now in a ready mode, awaiting a stable supply of crude oil once the Trans Mountain Pipeline is operational again. Parkland is now focused on offloading and distributing refined fuel that they are sourcing from elsewhere to their retail locations. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ralston. I will now ask Minister Fleming to say a few words.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Minister Ralston, Minister Farnworth. I'd like to begin with a huge and heartfelt thanks to all the crews that were out preserving Highway 1 last night from the flood risk in Abbotsford, Sumas. It went through the night. The effort was incredible to protect Highway 1 through the Fraser Valley. People have seen the images today of military, police, firefighters, and volunteers. I would like to give a shout out to the Shaw-Hamel First Nation, who also brought people and equipment to throw into the effort, and all of these individuals and organizations spent hours assembling tiger dams, and it was nothing short of astounding to see that, and it was a real race against time, and we thank them for their efforts. Our highway network continues to be challenged by the extreme weather we're experiencing, but we are meeting that challenge, and it's because of the incredible efforts of first responders, maintenance contractors, and many, many people in the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and Emergency Management BC that we are able to do this. I want to recap the situation on our highways. You'll recall that we proactively closed previously affected highways from the November 14th storm events. We did that over the weekend as a precaution. While there doesn't appear to be significant damage, many of the highways that we did preemptively closed experienced flooding, and some had debris and trees down on those routes. In terms of a status update of current conditions, I will provide that now, but please bear in mind that this situation is constantly evolving, and for the latest information, I would urge those who are listening to this to refer to Drive BC always. Last evening, we did in fact have to close Highway 1 to build those dams and protect it from flooding. We did that ahead of potential flooding. That stretch of highway remains closed in an area of concern. Some good news from overnight, with floodwaters having receded in certain parts of the storm-affected highway system, we are able to reopen Highway 3, and I believe that was as of 10 or 20 minutes ago. So that Highway 3 connection between Hope and Princeton has been reopened. And with Highway 7 also remaining open, this provides a vital corridor for the movement of essential goods. So starting in Mission, this route out to Princeton continues to fall under the travel orders. It is prioritized for commercial vehicles. We've also just reopened Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet, and Highway 1 in the Fraser Canyon from Hope to Boothroyd on the other side of Boston Bar. That has also reopened. Highway 1 east of Chilliwack between Popcombe and Hope, which was also proactively closed on Saturday, remains closed at this time. We are constantly assessing the status of closed highways. When we get engineers in there to make a safety determination, when it is safe to travel again, we will reopen those highways. Again, the situation is very dynamic, and I would encourage everyone to follow Drive BC for the latest information. With regards to supply chain, despite the challenges that we're experiencing on our highways, our broader supply chain is showing incredible resilience. Goods are still moving in British Columbia. Freight trains are currently traveling in both directions on CP tracks. CP continues to actively inspect its tracks, and train movement may hold when required for maintenance before it resumes again. CN Rail operated a total of 7 westbound trains on Saturday and Sunday before the rain events forced it to stop. CN has been able to work with customers to divert some rail traffic to the Port of Prince Rupert, where the rail line continues to have capacity and remains fluid. A reminder for motorists: please be extra vigilant on the roads where there are level crossings, where you are close to the railway. Proceed only when it's safe to do so. Look both ways and be mindful of rail traffic. With more heavy rains forecast, we'll continue to monitor all of our highways in the region. We have crews stationed now in the Bella Coola Valley, ready to respond as required because the weather event is heading in that direction, and we anticipate significant rainfall there. Again, with all of the people involved in this effort to protect our highways, to protect the traveling public, I want to again extend my appreciation and sincere respect for the professionalism and hard work of all the crews out there on our roads. Safety is our top priority as a government, as a ministry, and if required, we will preemptively close highways again. If you need to be driving, I urge you to check Drive BC for the very latest updates on road conditions. But unless it is absolutely necessary, I would encourage you to stay off the roads through this next storm event. And with that, I would like to now introduce Arnold Castelland from Environment Canada.
Please go ahead, Armel.
Thank you very much. My name is Armel Castelland, warning preparedness meteorologist, and I have an update for you on the third of 3 storms. But before I do that, I wanted to say that the second storm that occurred over the weekend was obviously impactful and delivered a fair amount of rain that affected many regions along our coast. Places like Abbotsford saw 104 millimeters of rain, Agassiz 100, Hope was up at 127, and we had a widespread amount on the west side of Vancouver Island, all the way through to the north and central coast. Currently, we are on a 24-hour break. We have showers interluding for the day into this evening. The system that we are tracking, it is, again, an atmospheric river. It's coming in from the subtropical origins near the Philippines. It's been traveling 8,000, 9,000 kilometers over the last few days, and it will deliver a relatively strong punch similar to what we saw this weekend. So we are talking about 50 to 100 millimeters on the south coast for the lower mainland, Sunshine Coast, Howe Sound, and the Fraser Valley. 50 millimeters is the estimate closer to the border region. As you get into those North Shore Mountains, of course, those values will increase. Same for Hope. We're talking about 60 to 90 millimeters. For Abbotsford, we're talking about 40 to 70. We also increase that amount into the coastal mountains near the Coquihalla Summit towards the height of land in that 40 to 70 millimeters as well. All this to say, there is a fair amount of rain on snow. The freezing levels are going to be going up to 2,500 meters or 3,000 meters, which is essentially above mountaintop height. So the snow that does remain, that is on the brink of melting because it's really close to 0 degrees, could certainly add to the total. So it's not just a rain event. It's not just a snow melting event. It's also a successive storm event. So even if the third storm is not as bad as it could have been in the modeling leading up to today, it will be problematic because they are coming so close back to back with the runoff and the saturated soil. We also are dealing with weather all across the province. Places on the north coast are going to see up to 40 centimeters of snow, followed by rain and perhaps even freezing rain and then rain. So places in Terrace, Stewart are definitely dealing with a lot of winter storm warning weather. And we have special weather statements out in the interior for Blue River, Golden, Shuswap area that are going to see a transition from freezing levels that are low to high and with a good amount of rain as well. So the whole province is bracing for this type of weather. The south coast is not immune to it. The central coast will be the peak for this event. So places from Bella Coola, Bella Bella, Wekino, Kinkham Inlet, and the northwest end of Vancouver Island from Tofino north are susceptible to seeing the largest amount up to 200 millimeters through till Wednesday evening. The last point I'll make is about wind. We will likely see some southeasterly winds, likely not wind warning criteria, but considering the vulnerabilities right now, 40 gusting to 60 kilometers an hour from the southeast on Tuesday and into Wednesday could be problematic. Lastly, with the outlook, we do have a break in the weather for Thursday and Friday. We follow that up with a weaker system, not an atmospheric river, on Saturday, and the details on those events as they come closer to happening will be emerging on our forecast, and we just urge everybody to stay vigilant, follow the forecast and the warnings associated to your region. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker today is David Campbell. Please go ahead, David.
Thank you. And I'll provide an update on current river conditions and the outlook in the coming days. Significant rainfall from the weekend's atmospheric river has exacerbated river levels and flood conditions across southwest British Columbia. Flooding and challenging conditions have been reported throughout the Fraser Valley, the Fraser Canyon, and into the interior watershed. Flood warnings were issued Sunday and remain in effect for the Coquihalla, Coldwater, Tulameen, and Sumas areas. We've got flood watches remaining in effect for southern Vancouver Island, Howe Sound, Metro Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, and the Fraser Valley, and we issued 2 new flood watches this morning for areas including the Central Coast and northern Vancouver Island in recognition of the risks associated of severe flooding potential over the next 3 days with this next atmospheric river system. The Nooksack River reached flood stage on Sunday afternoon and began spilling floodwaters into the Canadian side into the Sumas River watershed. We've seen the Nooksack River receding now through this morning and has dropped below that flood stage, but the active spilling on Monday morning of the settling of that floodwater is expected to continue through the day in the Sumas River side today, and it's expected that could provide additional challenges throughout the day. And this may be exacerbated by the continued rainfall and additional overspill risks that we may see over the coming 3 days. In terms of outlook, we've seen the peak from river levels from the storm over the last 2 days is now starting to see receding in rivers. And we're going to see a brief reprieve today in most of those systems with this lull. So we move to the upcoming days. The next atmospheric river event is expected to bring significant rainfall on Wednesday, through Wednesday, with risks for severe flooding on the coastal areas of the Central Coast, and as well as Vancouver Island. And given ongoing vulnerabilities, we can also expect to see persistence or additional flood risks persisting through the South Coast and into the South Interior through this week as well. And that's, thank you, that's my update.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody on the phone line, please press *1 to enter the queue. We will now take questions. Our first question today is from, I don't even know who it's from. Sorry, Derek Penner, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, yeah. Minister Ralston, I believe, mentioned some retailers have been automatically limiting purchases to 30 liters. Has the province looked at establishing a sort of more formal method of enforcing that rationing request?
We've been working with the fuel retailers, and many of them have been putting in place an automatic shut-off, either based on price or at a 30-liter mark, and that continues, and many of them are in fact doing that. The reality is this. The people in this province, in the Southwest, where the fuel restrictions, the 30-liter restriction is in place, have been doing the right thing. And I think everybody should be really proud of the role that they have been playing in helping us to get through this and ensure that we're able to maintain emergency services and keep our supply lines open. So we just need to keep doing the right thing, and that's what British Columbians have been doing.
Derek, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was talking with an analyst earlier today with the website Gas Buddy. They say that they for the first time, they use their sort of automatic alert system in Canada around the flooding situation. So this is where people can report retailers that are out of fuel, and they said that they've offered to make the data that they were gathering from that available to the province, but was or to federal officials. I don't know if it was the province itself, but they were sort of turned back. It's a system that's been able to provide useful information to jurisdictions in the states around hurricanes. I was just wondering if you knew of this, and I guess would you be open to sort of cooperating with them?
This is the first I've heard of this what you're talking about. Obviously, I'm more than happy to look into it. But what I can tell you is we work very closely with the fuel suppliers and the retailers in terms of ensuring that fuel is getting to where it's needed. And by people doing the right thing on the 30 liters, we have been getting through this period, I think, remarkably well. And if we keep doing that, we will ensure that we've got the fuel for our emergency services and for our supply chains and the fuel that people need. But certainly I'm happy to look into the issue that you've just raised.
Next question is from Mira Baines, CBC.
Minister Farnworth, have discussions already started between BC and Washington State to find a long-term solution to the problem of the Nooksack River flooding into BC? And if it too soon for permanent solutions? And if it is too soon for that, what kind of short-term strategies are being worked on, given how early we're seeing some of this winter storm flooding this season?
Obviously, we're in close communication with Washington State, in particular Whatcom County, because it's the counties that manage the flood warning and the alerts on the U.S. side of the border, sharing information and data so that we're prepared, and the communities along the Nooksack, in particular Abbotsford, are prepared to deal with what's coming over. They've been very cooperative in that regard. In terms of what a long-term solution is, it's a very complex system, and as I've said publicly, if there was a simple solution, it would have been implemented, I suspect, a very long time ago. What this is going to require is the province and Washington State, and I fully expect, the federal government and the U.S. federal government to try and come up with longer-term solutions, and that's where we're at this point. And obviously, the focus right now is getting through this situation and onto the recovery.
Do you have a follow-up, Mira?
Yes. Minister Farnworth, can you elaborate a bit on the resources now in place for the Bella Coola Valley area? That area that's expected to get 200 millimeters of rain. What should people there be doing now to prepare?
So working with the local community and determining the needs that they need on the ground, I can tell you that in terms of understanding and getting a sense of what could happen with this heavy rainfall, a hydrologist is on their way up to that region to assist in the planning. There have been assets deployed, sandbags, for example, to assist in strengthening areas that may require it, as well as Canadian Armed Forces personnel are also able to assist in that deployment.
Next question is from Tyler Olson, Fraser Valley Current.
Thanks. To whomever can answer it, when was it realized the Sumas River Bridge could be a gap in the flood defenses? And can you provide extensive details, since your government is now making small news organizations pay money to get that information through FOI?
We deal with the situation on the ground when it comes to roads and communities and evacuation orders and alerts on an ongoing basis. And so I can tell you that as of yesterday, in the morning, we did the assessment. We did a media availability on the situation as it was at that time. And then I can tell you literally 90 minutes after that press conference, we were notified that the situation, I was notified by a conversation with the mayor in Abbotsford, that the situation was changing significantly over the concern of the situation on the Nooksack. So it's very fluid and very dynamic, and the decisions are made on the basis of the information as it's coming in.
Follow up, Tyler?
Yeah, how will reducing the transparency of your ministry help public safety?
I'm not aware of any transparency being reduced in the ministry. We are giving, daily press conferences daily, updates daily. We are being out here with as much information as we can provide.
Next question, Richard Zussman, Global News.
Minister, are there concerns that extending the rationing could lead to panic buying, especially as we head towards the holidays, and especially given what Minister Ralston said, that our supplies are actually quite good due to help from the U.S. and Alberta? If we still have supply coming, why do we need to continue the rationing?
Because the fundamental pipeline, which supplies the majority of the product for refining, will not be up just yet. Trans Mountain is working around the clock to get it in a position where it will be. That being said, we need to make sure that we've got the fuel that we need to keep our emergency services running, our supply routes open, and the transport trucks to be able to deliver the goods and services that we need. And by everybody doing their part, we are ensuring that that fuel is there, and that the 30 litres, as we've seen over the last 12 days, has accomplished that. And British Columbians are doing the right thing. And I fully expect that they're going to continue doing the right thing until the 14th of December, when we can get this order lift. And if we can do it sooner, we absolutely will be.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
As I'm sure you're aware, those in the region heard the sirens going off due to the Nooksack. And in BC, we don't have the same sort of alert system. Are these sort of sirens, would they have been helpful in British Columbia in terms of warning? And are you confident that people are getting the information they need as quickly as possible as this next weather event comes midweek?
Absolutely, people are getting the information that they need. And in the case of Abbotsford, for example, the area has already been under evacuation order, and evacuation alerts are in place in those communities. So it's not a question of saying, oh, having a siren. The people have already evacuated from that area. There has been troops deployed. All resources are down in that area on the Sumas Prairie to deal with the situation. And I think the City of Abbotsford has been doing a remarkable job, and we have been cooperating with them every step of the way to ensure, one, not only do they have what they need, but if an alert needs to go out, that it is able to go out.
Next question is from Rob Shaw, Check News.
Oh, hi. To either minister, I guess, just to follow up on Richard's question, could you give us any specific numbers on how much fuel would normally be coming in through TMX, what we're bringing in by barge, what we're bringing in by rail, and how that kind of compares to our regular amount?
What I can tell you right now, and Minister Ralston can give more detail, is that the pipeline normally brings in about 85% of the fuel that's required for refining. What we have been doing, obviously, is working with the railways to bring additional fuel in from Alberta, and also fuel being barged up from Washington and Oregon. And it has been meeting the needs that we require. Minister Ralston may have additional to add to that.
Go ahead, Minister Ralston.
Just very briefly, the sourcing from the United States has been very effective, as well as the rail, CP Rail bringing in fuel from Alberta. The Trans Mountain is expected to be back soon, although they've had some minor setbacks. They have to make sure that the pipeline is safe to operate before they re-engage, and the plan is to bring it back at a reduced pressure, but they're not ready to do that yet, and of course we wouldn't expect them to do that until it's totally safe. But the measures that have been taken are working.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks. We have time for one more question today. Alana Kelly, Glacier Media.
Thank you. I spoke with a family from Othello Road. After the first flood on November 14th, they said they begged for help. Yesterday, their home was swept away. There's nothing left. It wasn't until hours after this that an evacuation order was sent. So they asked for help, felt alone, and now their home is gone. So my question is, what was done in this area to stop flooding, and what is your response to this family?
Obviously, whenever an event like this happens, it's heartbreaking for people who've lost a home and have been forced to evacuate. What I can tell you is that the province will be there in terms of the emergency supports required to get them through this time, and we intend to do that and to make sure that they are supported.
Alana, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, to the first part of my question, wondering what was done in that area specifically. There was the first flood November 14th, and then yesterday their home was gone. So
the flooding, the event on the 14th was so dramatic that and unprecedented that it just came down in a way that even experts did not expect. Yesterday, flood advisory. I know that flood advisories had been in place and evacuation orders had been in place in the Hope area. That is put in at that local level. I know in some places they were lifted, but I'd have to know the specific location to give you an exact status on a particular location.
That concludes today's information update. Please note our next scheduled update is Tuesday, November 30th. Thank you.